Welcome back. This is the Alchemist Nation podcast. My name is Walter Amarillo, and I am your host. I get the pleasure to travel all across the country speaking to real estate investors who are extremely successful in their markets and in their niches. Today, I have a great guest, Viktor. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Excellent. So, Viktor, you are a friend of Annette, who I had on the podcast last week. And she said that I've got to interview you. You're crushing it in Gainesville. And I'm about, I want to say 2 hours away from Gainesville, down in Tampa, Florida right now, although I'm originally out of Massachusetts, and that's where most of my rental properties currently are. Viktor, how do I pronounce your last name?
I get that question a ton. So it's Jiracek, like you're a check.
Jiracek, but there is a J there.
There's a J.
There is no H.
Exactly, yeah.
So, Viktor, what is your nationality?
So family is from Slovakia. My parents were born here. I was born here. I still speak the language, which I still travel there once in a while. I was supposed to go back in April, but that's when Corona was taking off. I had a cousin's wedding, so unfortunately couldn't attend. But yeah, I still travel, still speak the language, and it's a great place if you'll ever.
All right. So Viktor, you're Slovakian. That makes sense. Say your last name one more time.
You're a Czech, like
you're a Czech.
Yep.
You're a Czech. All right, it's very easy. And for anybody at home who's looking to spell it, I'm going to have it in, it's actually right in the video, so you can see it already.
There we go.
And we will be getting some show notes because spelling will be an issue on this one. So Viktor, you do 20 flips, or you did 20 flips in 2020, and you're aiming at more in 2021. What is the mindset of somebody who's been successful, who says, yeah, I'm just going to go and add an extra 10 entire flips to your portfolio, when the average person's afraid to do their own flip? In fact, the average person's afraid to buy their own house, let alone go do their own flip. So how did you get into this?
Yeah, no, good question for sure. And yeah, so I did 20 flips last year. My goal is 30 flips this year. How did I get into this? Luckily, so real estate has been a family business. So kind of got brought up with it. And I was like 14 when I got started, and I could help out with family properties, but I would help out like with a lot of like the smaller renovation tasks, like, hey, help us demo this, help us rip out this carpet, help us do some painting, like super simple stuff. And really grew up with it, and got my first property, bought my first property, like my own rental, when I was 18, got a little condo, and, went from there. I was more of a rebel where I wanted to do something else. I was always entrepreneurial, but wanted to do something else. So it wasn't just, I was like, hey, family business, real estate, I want to do something else. I want to go my own way. Had a couple failed businesses, and then realized like, hey, wait a second, real estate's fun. It's lucrative. I actually have a passion for it, and was always felt like I was tied back into it, wanting to get back into it. So that's where I am now, back in real estate and really enjoying it.
All right. I like failed businesses. I love the whole concept of, I had a failed business. What was your first business that you remember like being like legitimate, you were making money?
Yeah. So what it was, so I was in college. I had a full ride, and I decided like, hey, college isn't for me. So I ended up dropping out. And part of the reason I dropped out, I was recommended, hey, like instead of starting a business, you should buy a business. So I was on the mindset like, okay, if I can buy a business, I can save that startup time. It's already up and running. Okay, boom, let's go. So the first business I got into was like a wood flooring business, like a wood floor refinishing business. That's what I actually got into, made some money, made a lot of mistakes. Happy to talk about those, but learned a lot of lessons too.
I like that. I love, yeah. So a wood flooring business, I worked on the other side of it, right? I used to sell, like retail when I was like 18 years old. I'd go and I'd sell wood floors and installed them with some installers. Like I was just like the kid that they could pay like, $5 an hour. And I'd be like, yeah, let's go. I'll install whatever, carpets, tile, flooring. If it's flooring, I can do it. So you actually started a business. What made you say, I'm going to buy a business? Because I've also discovered that buying a business is smarter than startup, because the first year is just a pain. Whereas you buy the existing business, all you gotta do is swap out systems and people and processes, and you're making money. How did you come to that in college?
I was just learning, like reading a lot of books, listening to a podcast, watching YouTube videos, and just got on that hook. I got tied up to a specific guy who was doing that. That was his MO. That's what he taught. So I got mentored by him and got into it that way.
I like it. Yeah, so you found a mentor. That's one of the secrets. Yeah.
Mhm.
You found somebody who's doing it. And how did you decide flooring business?
I was 20, 21 at the time, so my budget was pretty limited. So I couldn't spend half a million or $1 million buying a business. So I had to go smaller. And this was like a lower end, like still kind of half startup, just getting off the ground. So that's how I decided. That was one of the only and few businesses in my price point. So it was like, okay, I guess I'm stuck with this one.
And when you started, what did they have? What was there already in place that you were buying? What'd you buy it for?
So there wasn't much, honestly. So there wasn't really much. I think I bought the entire thing for like 50,000, and then part of it was a seller note, so I didn't put all of the money down. So part of it was like a seller note. I'd start to do monthly payments on. I didn't buy much. It was basically like this guy, and he was a solopreneur, and he was the one doing the jobs. He was getting the phone calls. He was doing the sales, doing the bids. So there wasn't much of a business there that I bought. I just kind of bought a job, and that was part of the mistake I made. So basically bought a
Yeah.
job, and I mean, I bought all his equipment and all that stuff, and it was technically a franchise. So I bought the territory. But looking back, honestly, it would have been better if I just went into the franchise brand new, would have saved a ton because he didn't have much. I mean, he was in it maybe a year or two and got a book of business, but I really, didn't really just basically bought a job.
A book of business that was based on him, right? So like there was no other salespeople in there. It was just him making those calls, him building those relationships. So yeah, you did. You bought a job, right? And so
Basically
you
bought a
learned
job.
that lesson early on. What did you do next? How'd you get out of the job?
So basically, I ran out of money. Like I was maxed out on all the credit cards, maxed out on everything, had no money in the bank. So I just literally couldn't continue. I ran it as a 20-year-old would run it with no experience. I didn't listen to anyone, wanted to do it on my own and all that stuff. So basically ran it into the ground and racked up a ton of debt and got out of that. I went out of wood flooring, tried a lot of different stuff. Nothing really ever stuck. I didn't really stick with anything for longer than a week. Then I went to home healthcare. So I thought, what if I buy the business I bought was too small? So what if I buy a bigger business? Half a million, couple million, raise money, go that route, get a board. I got big four accountants and lawyers and started hunting for deals. That took a couple years. Happy to get into that as well. But from wood flooring went to home health.
Yes, want to get into that. I know that everybody listening is like, dude, like you skipped the cool part. How did you get from, you know, like a job, like basically you just
Mhm.
became self-employed, you became a salesperson
Yeah.
and shift over to raising $500,000 to start a business or buy a business, to acquire a business.
Yeah, so that's when I came across like I was still set like, hey, I should buy a business because it makes it easier, start with something. I figure like, okay, I just started too small. Instead of I basically bought a job. So I was thinking, okay, cool, let's take this to the next level. Let's go out there and do this on a bigger scale. And I was following a strategy more popular in the 80s, less popular now, although it still happens. It's called a roll up. So you buy specific companies in an industry, you put them all together, and then you can sell it. So you buy it at, let's say, 3x, and then you put them all together. And because you're a bigger company, you can sell it at 10x. So this was really popular in the 80s. And it's somewhat, still around, but it's used less often.
I
So that was my
actually have
idea.
one
Like,
of my
let's buy.
students who owns
What's that?
Subways. I have a student who owns Subways, and
Uh-huh.
we're operating the roll up right now because I was like, look, I'm not interested in two Subways. You bring me 10, I can raise capital on it, right? Like two is not gonna do it for me.
Exactly. So that's awesome. So that's exactly what I was doing. So I was buying home health companies because you go what's into a fragmented industry where there's a lot of these companies, so you can actually buy them. So like with your example with Subway, that's possible for you to buy them or put them all together because there's a lot of Subways. So that's basically what we did. That was the plan actually. So buy a ton of these home health companies, put them all together. I'm lucky. I actually never got a business. I had another. It was me doing my own thing, and then kind of parallel a friend of mine was doing it as well, and he actually ended up buying three of them and didn't do well, didn't know how to operate them, was part of the problem, and they all fell apart, and he's not doing so well recently. But so I'm glad I never got into it, but it took me 2-3 years to try to buy a business. I got pretty far. I got a board of directors. I got the SBA money almost lined up. I got close on a couple deals but just never closed. And today I'm thankful because I would have been still tied to it and would have had a much bigger financial loss.
Absolutely. So you never went and finished the process, but everything you've just said is exactly how we build businesses, exactly how we buy businesses, exactly how we scale them out and do the value adds. So what did you end up doing? What pulled you? How'd you pay back all of that credit card debt on that job you bought?
Sure. So basically, what happened with the home health, so that fell apart. I never got a deal, and eventually, I was just like, "Hey, I've been doing this for so long," and some of the SBA rules started to change too. So I was like, "Okay, this is getting harder." So I was like, "Okay, I'll just pass." So I started working for a home health company, just like a corporate job. I was a home health administrator for a while, for a year or so, just helping run the agency, run the office, and basically transitioned to real estate because I always had that passion. I always had that drive. It was just something in the back of my mind for all those years. Like, oh, what if the end goal was like, okay, make all this money, then put it into real estate. Uh, I eventually realized like, let's just start with real estate. Don't save, make a shortcut. So basically, I got into wholesaling and then flipping. And then with the flips and like the success I had with the real estate, I was able to pay off those credit card debts. And so I got paid off with all that stuff like a year or two ago. So living debt free, bad debt free. Like I still use good debt, like hard money to get deals, mortgages to get rentals, but like bad debt, like credit card debt, people I owe that doesn't generate income. So that's the story of how I transitioned there. I'm happy to talk about more of the transition, wholesaling to flipping, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we got like 10 minutes left, so we got some time to dive into some of the details here. And I know a lot of our students, people who listen to this, the other investors who are out there listening, they're thinking, okay, so I've got this wholesaling dream that I want to do, but really at the end of the day, Victor, I'm sure you're the same as me. Like, I don't even really want to own rental property. I just want to own rental property as a passive investor. But there's a process that we go through, and we're in some passive investments, but for the most part, we're at that stage where we wholesale if we have to. We have a team of agents who go and do agency. We have our flips that we make most of our money off of. Then we have these rental properties that we store our wealth in. But ultimately, the goal is have those paid off, have somebody else buy us out, and just get passive income off of that as a seller, seller financing or something along those lines, or be invested in passively in some large syndication deal. So there's this process, and you're at, stage 2, 3, where you're shifting into, have you started buying rental properties?
I used to do rentals last year. I got up to like maybe a dozen or so, and then
Nice.
I really like the flip, so I've just been focusing on that. I partially with the rentals, I made the mistake of self-managing, and I'm just not a good property manager. I know by your reaction. I'm not a good property manager. I was too lenient. Like people are like, oh, I'm gonna be a little bit late. And I'm like, okay, I'll work with you, and they would take advantage of that. So
Yeah,
I'm down to
that's
one property now, one rental property. I have a lot of more flips going since that's what I'm focusing on. But that one's a property manager, and that's been going good, honestly. But I'll get into more properties, rentals in the future. But right now, I'm just focusing on the flips.
Yeah, you're doing the right thing, because right now is a great time to raise income, right? Raise capital, raise income. Yeah, you're paying a ton of taxes, but you're having money to roll and expand and grow the business, and you're living a better life now flipping real estate than you ever did, installing floors or selling flooring.
Yeah.
So you went through a phase of not having a lot of cash to real estate investing on the flip side brings in a ton of money.
Yep.
And then on the buy and hold side, it's a longer delay. Like the money's there, you just don't get to touch it. You don't get to see it or play with it. So there's a lot of reasons to stay in the flip a little bit longer just to build up that capital.
That's what I figured out, especially when I was in debt and had to owe these people and trying to get out of it. Like it made more sense to me. Like, okay, I'll rather take a 30K check versus 300 a month. Like the
Yeah.
300 a month, don't get me wrong, there's value in that, but just where I was and I guess still where I am, like I'd rather get 30K check, 30K check, 30K check, and then slowly into the future I can translate that into more passive income. But this is all the natural flow of things. So people even getting started, I still recommend like for your first deal, do a flip because you're going to have that in and out. You're going to get that big check and that's life-changing money, 20, 30, 40,000 for the average person. So I recommend getting started there. And then the second reason you want to get started in flips is because when you get started, you're going to make mistakes and that's totally okay. I'd rather you make mistakes and then be out of the property and you can move on versus being stuck with that property long term, 3, 5, 7 years plus. And you're like, oh, I made those mistakes and they're still haunting me to this day.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And then there's the other side of, buy and hold right now, where like I could flip my entire portfolio, pull out and walk away with, $3 million, but But I look at it and it's like, man, like if I just held it one more year, maybe it's 35, like $3.5 million, right? So there's this little bit of balancing it out, and I think you're playing it really well. You want to lock in at some point, and I think that we are at a new bottom. Which, if you talked to me a year ago, I would have said, man, the crash is coming, the crash is coming, the crash is coming. But I think that we're at a new bottom right now on the multifamily rentals, and I want to be very clear that I think singles will still crash. I think that there's still definitely a great market for singles to crash, and certainly on commercial to crash. But there's in multifamily will come down, and I think we'll see some deals probably June, July, August. But we're talking flash crash. I don't think we're talking like what we saw in 08 to like 14, where it was just half a decade.
Yeah. Not another decade, another half decade of.
Yeah. I don't see it coming because of the way they've inflated the market. It's almost impossible to stop this appreciation that's going to keep going. So it's like flipping should be very good and the speculation. Let me be clear. Right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Victor doesn't know what's going to happen, but you hedge your bet by buying right. You make your $30,000-$40,000. And if you have a partner like I do, we operate, we're pushing towards, we have to make 60, 70,000. Otherwise it's not worth our time. So Victor, I assume you're not partnered up. You're doing this yourself right now. Is that fair to say?
When I got started, I had partners, because especially when I transitioned to flipping, it was one of those things. I had low 500 credit score, not a lot of money in the bank because I had those two failed businesses right after each other. So I grabbed a partner to help me out. That's another recommendation. Like, hey, a lot of people say like, hey, I don't have money. I can't get into real estate. It's like, well, if you get a good enough deal, you can find someone. If you get a good spread on a deal, I think people throw money at you. Like, I'm in, awesome, whatever you want.
You just segued into the book I just wrote. Get the deal. With the right deal, you can find all the money. You just got to get the deal. Awesome. So Victor, you teach some training courses, right? Flipping courses, real estate investing courses.
I do. Yeah, I do. So I flip houses full time, as mentioned, but I also teach people how to flip houses. I teach people how I did it, how to do it, how to get started nationwide. I have folks in, South Carolina, Michigan, any state. I have folks who I'm teaching, and it's really helpful and it's fun. I found, like, for me to go from 30 flips in a year to 31 flips, like, okay, cool, that's exciting. But if I can get someone from 0 to first flip, like, that's like, okay, cool, that's great, awesome, that's made my whole week, good for them. So it's more, you get more of that kick.
Yeah, it's spiritual, right? Like, so you look at, you got money, wealth, spirit, and I think that the teaching is a very it's a give back kind of opportunity. So like, you're just giving back, and it makes you feel good. And I hope you collect some money, because that's what makes them committed. So if you're having success, it's because you're collecting money.
Yeah, so that's interesting, because I had the same experience. I used to try to do it for free, and like, people just didn't have the skin in the game. Like, they hit one little bump in the road, and they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to give up. I'm like,
this is not for me. Yeah.
But now I'm collecting. I make it affordable, accessible, so don't worry about that for your listeners. But like, just having a little bit of skin in the game, I've seen the results skyrocket. Like, people are getting deals, they're getting out there, making money, doing well. They go from one flip to the next one, then they can do some rentals, and like, it just opens up their world. So it's been really exciting to see that, for sure.
Yeah, Victor, I like that you make it affordable. We've done the same. It's just the right thing to do. There's plenty of gurus out there who their time is worth that, right? Like, you do have to pay that because they got other things that they can do. And if that's a person you want to work with, but there'll always be somebody who's willing to just pay it forward, especially in the beginning. Like, you were working for free mentoring for free, teaching for free. And I did the same for years. So it depends on where you catch somebody in their time cycle, where you can get a mentor for free, or, at certain levels, you're going to pay a little bit more. Before we jump in a little bit further, if you're gaining value from this podcast, if you gain value from these episodes, please go to iTunes and write a positive review. It helps us get ranked higher. iTunes loves promoting podcasts that have high reviews, and we really want to make sure more people are getting access to the information that people like Victor are giving us on the Alchemist Nation podcast. So it does us a huge favor. Please go out and write the review. I know many of you have said, yes, I'm going to do it. And then you find out it's a little harder than just signing into the website. Please, it's just a button and a couple of sentences. Just say what's on your heart. Hey, great podcast. Love this. Something simple is good enough for us. Really appreciate helping us out with expanding this mission, getting it to other people's faces and ears. Actually, it's just ears, so that they can become more successful. So Victor, before we move on, I want to ask, what is the thing you're doing right now? Like, what is it you see yourself putting all your energy into right now? We're in the middle of COVID. I think we're in the middle. A lot of people think we're at the end, but I think this is the middle of COVID, and maybe we got another year of this. What are you doing right now to maximize on this opportunity?
I think it's still, sticking to the fundamentals. Like the numbers have to make sense. Still getting out there, putting out offers on deals. I think, yes, Corona's changed some things with regards to the real estate landscape, but the basics are the same. A house is a house, four walls and a roof. That hasn't changed. Corona or not. People still need a place to live, and that hasn't changed. I haven't seen any data that is going to change. And just sticking to the fundamentals, stick to the basics, and those will lead you to the way.
I like that. And since we were on the topic, I kind of preluded, what do you think is going to happen in the future? Do you get a year, a time crash? Like, what do you think?
Good.
And I won't hold you to it, but I just want to get your opinion. What's your intuition say?
So I'll say it from this angle. So I know with regards to, because we've seen this happen, and we know if we follow laws of nature, like stuff has to go through its own cycle. So if the pendulum swings this way, it has to, even out and swing the other way. So I don't know when it's going to happen. I honestly, I've given up on giving time frames, because even back in 2015, 2016, I'm like, this is going to crash. This can't go anywhere. So it was one of those things. I gave up on, on that. But just as a law of nature, if something goes one way where it's an extremely hot seller's market, it just has to go the other way. It has to even out. And that's, as long as your mindset's in the right frame, then it's one of those things where you can benefit from it. I know a ton of people who just shifted their strategy a little bit in 08, 09, 2010, and they were out there killing it. They used that momentum in their favor. They're just, made some tweaks in their strategy, and they made generational wealth. They made, a lifetime wealth. They don't have to work anymore. So it's always like just knowing where the market is and knowing how you can adjust and, profit off of it, and also help others in the meantime.
Yeah, those are the principles of success. I personally think that what you said is accurate, and no matter what the market does, like, you can be successful as long as you adjust with the market, and as long as especially if you're buying things that make money, right? If you're going into rentals, like, they just got to cash flow, right? If they cash flow, who cares what the market does? Exactly. If you're buying flips and you buy them low enough, just buy them lower than 20% equity. Like, if you do the 30% ARV, you're going to make money. Right. If you buy 30% ARV and you make sure that your actual renovation costs and your closing costs and your carrying costs are all included, then you're going to make money. Like, the market would have to drop 30% to break even. Right. As long as you include your commit, like all of the true expenses of a flip into your 70%, like you can't fail. Right. The market would, like, unless you're in Vegas. Okay. If Vegas did drop 70% in 08. So, like, it's a matter of doing it, getting good coaches, getting good mentors. Victor, I know you said you do some coaching, you do some training. What is the easiest way somebody can reach out to you to find out more about that?
For sure. So I'm most active on Facebook. So if anyone wants to reach out to me on Facebook, I also have a free Facebook group, Six Figure House Flippers. But if you look up my name on Facebook, you'll find me. Luckily, it's a unique name, so you'll catch me on there. I'll be the first one that pops up. And then, just reach out if you have a question. I'm here to help. If you want to join the mentorship, awesome. If you don't, that's fine too. I just want to be a resource and help folks out, and just help them on the journey. A lot of people have helped me on mine, so it's part of that time to start giving back and helping others out as well.
100%. And paying it forward is, it's not the most money we make, but it's the most rewarding money we make. I say it all the time. The flips, the holds, the agency makes way more money than the training company, but the training company just feels good. That money you earn is money that's, you put that in somebody's head for the rest of their life. They're going to keep growing exponentially. It's the compound effect. What you're doing, Victor, it's God's work, right? In fact, that's what Jesus came here for. He was just like, hey, by the way, this is the stuff that works. And like, he didn't send, well, I mean, early on with us, he was like throwing plagues and stuff, but like later on, he was just like, I should just teach him. I'm just going to send somebody, I'll send my son, whatever, teach him out. So Victor, if you could go back, wow, I digress, right? Get away from religion and politics, stay away from those at all times. So if you could go back to 20-year-old Victor, which, from your success story is not that far away. So I'm going to ask you a different question, right? From most investors, I'm interviewing them, and they're at your success level, they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s. And so I'm going to have to go back to 16-year-old Victor, right? If you could go back to 16-year-old Victor, or 17-year-old Victor? Because we've got students in our program that are 17 years old, 19 years old. So like, this is for them. If you go back to 17-year-old Victor, what 3 pieces of advice you give yourself that would explode your success and get you to where you are today faster?
Yeah. So what I found, what's interesting, when I started the coaching and the mentoring, I thought like, hey, if I just teach people what to do step by step, then they're going to be off to the races and they're going to nail it. And what I slowly found out is there's another piece to it, and that's really mindset. So it's not only like teaching them what to do, but then teaching them like the right mental frameworks and the right mindset to have. So really, my 3 things would be the same thing over and over again. So mindset, mindset, mindset. What's interesting, anytime I learned something new in mindset or started, implementing a new practice, a daily practice, I started to see shifts in my income and in my business. So if I can nail down mindset, then the rest follows. I really think that's the key. So just implementing like a daily practice, like affirmations, visualization is really helpful. I do some other stuff, meditation, that sort of thing, but just working on that mindset. Because there was times where I would learn something new and I'd try to implement it, but then I'd have so much self-sabotage, or I'd like mess myself up, or I'd procrastinate, where I was just spinning my wheels. And then that was fixed once I got the right mindset into place.
It's crazy. Even as I've been studying mindset for the last 7 years, obsessing over it. Became a hypnotist, NLP
Oh, nice.
practitioner. Like, oh yeah, I went out, lived in Vegas, like learning from these guys. And even still, to this day, I'm still like, oh man, like I gotta get my affirmations tightened up. Oh, I gotta focus on the vision,
Mm-hmm.
or you get to, and it always is a moving target. It's just like moving the goalpost. So let me see if I can simplify this. What would you say is the best book you've read on mindset? The one that really opened things up for you?
Best book on mindset. Huh.
Tough, right?
I would start with the fundamentals, especially if your folks are beginners. So start with the fundamentals like Think and Go Rich. I would start with that. That's a really good base. And then from there you can try and do some other stuff. But I would start with that as a base and really go from there. That's probably the biggest, piece of advice I can give there. So start with that, because that'll really open up your mind. Like if you can subscribe to the fundamental notion, like, yeah, everything starts in your mind, everything starts as a thought and then goes from there, and like how you charge and how you think about things is what becomes reality. If you can agree to that, then the rest is going to follow suit. But if you can't agree to that, then if you say like, hey, if I can't have a thought and have it come to reality, then everything else I'm going to teach you is not going to sit. So let's start with that as a fundamental, and then we can work through there and work through some smaller other pieces and daily habits, rituals, morning routines, all that stuff. But that's what I recommend. Like, start with that book as a
I like that. That's a powerful way to say it, because it is up here, but first you have to agree that it's up here. And then from that, the rituals, the routines, the habits, the processes work. But without that belief system that this is where all the problems are and all the opportunities, where you're basically a ship lost at sea without a captain. So very powerful conversation, Victor. Some of the best advice we've gotten on here from somebody so young, so successful, moving forward. It's absolutely an honor to be living down here in Florida now and be able to hang out with you guys. So Gainesville, where do you see that city going? And we're going to log off in like a second, but where do you see Gainesville going in the future? You still flip in Gainesville, or where are you really spending most of your flipping?
I do Gainesville and Alachua County, so I try to keep it local. Anytime I've tried to go away from that or anything like that, I've gotten penalized. So
Yeah.
as much as possible, I try to stay local and focused there. I just see it growing. It's if you see the 100-year trend line for Gainesville, it's up. It's 45 degrees, so I think it's going to continue that. Might have some blips here and there, but it's been on that same path moving forward. So plan to stick around here at least for the time being. It's going well. It's a great real estate market. So that's it. Just stick to the fundamentals, continue finding deals, continue doing flips, and really evolve from there.
Yeah, Victor, that's probably the best advice that I've given somebody in the training programs before is wherever you live, just
Mhm.
crush it there. Just absolutely obsess over your market, and there's money to be made in every market all across the country. Whatever city you're in, somebody's making money. If you haven't figured it out, find that person and ask them how. Plain and
Yeah.
simple.
Mhm. And then
Great
people are nice.
advice.
People are like, "Hey, yeah, I'd love to tell you," or they can at least point you in the right direction. I come across those people where they're shy and I'm like, I don't want to ask them. What if they say no? Well, at least you've made some progress if they say no.
Absolutely. Exactly. So Victor, we have a bunch of training courses that we teach, Alchemist Nation. We do them for free.
Awesome.
We have a wholesaling mastermind that we do on Mondays at 5. We have a Wednesday at 6 p.m. It is buy real estate and cash flow to get rich. And if you're interested, I'd love to have you on either one of those. Just jump in, give a little conversation about something that you've thought has done well, either in wholesaling or in buying real estate. But I'd love to introduce you to the community. I think there's a lot of value that you have, and I know the other coaches who teach those days would love to have you in as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm into it. I've done both. I've done the flipping, I've done wholesaling, I've done rental. So I'm happy to hop on one or hop on both. Just, want to be a value for you and your community.
Awesome. Thank Victor so much. Thank you, brother. You are an alchemist. Cheers to your success. When you have a choice, always work with the best.